Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Ambassadorial Wing. And I am your host, the Ambassador. And tonight we are going to be covering a topic of great interest, particularly what's coming out later this year with the Denis Villeneuve adaptation of Frank Herbert's legendary Dune. And this evening I have with me the one and only Adega Outlaw and Stone Loki. And there we will have a few more panelists joining us throughout the stream this evening. So as the man said, let's get started. And I want to thank my mods for being here tonight. Shea Storm Dragon, Mother of Mods, and Kathia Star. Thank you both ladies for being here. And to everyone in the chat, thanks for joining us this evening. And we will get started with some quick introductions, and then we will get into our topic. So, gentlemen, I pass the floor to you. Have at it.
Wow. Leave it that wide open. There is a consensus, and I'll throw this off to you guys to see how you feel about it, where they say that Frank Herbert is probably, or one of the greatest sci-fi writers of all time. I don't know if that's true, but he did write an awful lot, and he did a lot of research for his book, so I got to give him credit for that. Unusual writing style for me. Some of the things, the clips and bits and pieces, because I've never read one of his books all the way through, and I did it deliberately since I knew I was going to be writing. It's quite an unusual style in the way he uses words in different directions, but I don't know. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with the books, or you want to start with the movie?
I think
the original movie.
I think maybe it might not be a bad idea to at least touch on the books at least a little bit before we jump into the movies. But what do you all think?
Oh, you know what I think. He who controls the spice controls the universe.
I will mute you.
Boy, that has been used an awful lot.
Yeah, okay. And good evening, Philip Gaming. Good evening, Eris of Chaos. Thank you both for being here. Glad you have joined us this evening. Honestly, let's start with what everybody knows best, and that is the movie. And then we can blend the miniseries, we can blend the books in, and we can kind of expand out from there. What do you all think?
Well, I know the movie pretty well.
I think everybody knows the movie pretty well.
I remember going to the movie when it came out, and I took two of my friends, we're teenagers, and we sat down, and my buddies, when we go to a theater, it was one of us empty chair, one of us empty chair. We were pigs, and they gave us these sheets of paper that had lists of definitions and stories of that, and I thought, and my buddies looked at each other and go, why do we need a description of what's going to come? I mean, what are these words? Didn't make sense. And then we saw the movie, and I'm going, man, I liked it. My buddies are going, that was the dumbest thing I ever saw. But back in the time, it was not taken very well. A lot of people thought, one, it was too hard to follow. Those who read the book said it didn't follow the books well enough. But you couldn't knock the acting. They had the best actors there.
Oh man!
The music, everyone, it was really well acclaimed for the music, and the artistic, when it came to cinematography, was really good.
Absolutely.
But the story, just people were going, we can't. I mean, on both sides of the fences, they didn't like it. Well, of course, now it's a cult following where people say, doesn't matter if it matches the books, it's just kind of a beautiful film. And I have the extended one, and there were so many bits and pieces that they left out because it was such a long movie that for me it was worth watching.
Yeah, it is one of those movies that suffers from, well, it can't be this long in the theater, so cut all of this out. And you're like, okay, well, when you see all that restored, it gives you such a better picture. And when you learn about the history and why they are the way they are and why they don't use computers like AI, and it gives you a much better understanding of what you're watching compared to what they threw out in the theater. Which I remember coming out of that, and I went and saw it with my family, and I was just a little kid when that came out. I think that was the first movie we ever saw when we moved to Texas, and it was just they hated it, but I thought it was cool. I was like, oh, sound gun, that's so cool. Muad'Dib, Muad'Dib. And my name is a killing word. And I'm like, cool. And it was just, to me, it was a cool movie. And I always kind of liked it, but I was also a little kid. And my dad hated it. I remember him saying, well, it didn't do the book justice, and it didn't do this, and it didn't do that. And it was just the whole family was like that. What a total waste of money and time. But I liked it. I've always liked it. So yeah, there's some difference with the book, but oh well, it's still a good movie. And you're right, grade A cast, wonderful cast in that movie. In fact, I don't think they were appreciated enough for the job they did. If anything, it was an unappreciated cast.
And we have our next panelist speaker for the dead. Good evening, sir. Glad you were able to join us tonight.
Yep, sorry I was late.
No, that's okay. I've still got a couple of stragglers that are going to be joining us shortly, so you're good. But we just got started and everything with our discussion. And to the chat, everybody that's coming in, just another nerd, good to see you, sir. Thank you for being here tonight. I know for you it is very, very late, so kudos to you, sir.
Nerd doesn't sleep. He's a troll.
No. Hoggle is not a troll. He's a goblin.
Still looks like a troll to me.
Yeah, he looks like the guy for the Troll movie.
I thought he was Hoggle from Labyrinth.
He is.
Oh, okay.
George Peter Gatsis, good evening, sir. Thank you for joining us.
There's a man who probably know more about it than any of us. George.
Yeah. George, if you want to join, I think I might have one other spot for you. Just DM me or let me know in the chat, and I will send you a link if you're just lurking, because I know you've had a busy day already. You were the other one that was on the stream with me and George B.D. Lucas earlier. That was the other one. Sorry, conversation from earlier. Back on topic. I think the thing that stuck with me from the original movie is it had this very epic feel to it. And though I wasn't terribly familiar with the books, I wasn't even aware that the books existed. I think they mentioned it in the opening credits that it was adapted from the Frank Herbert book. I'm like, there's a book? And then I actually went to a Barnes & Noble and everything when one opened up in my hometown, and I found a whole Dune shelf. I'm like, holy crap, this guy was a beast at writing. And I was like, whew. But I think the thing that stuck out, and I'm going to do a little bit of compare and contrast between the Lynch movie and the sci-fi series. And I think one thing in particular that I really liked, because I got a chance to finally read the books, and I got to read the prequel books as well, was the contrast between how Baron Harkonnen was portrayed between, I think the actor's name was Brian McKeith or something like that, and Ian McNeice. I honestly liked the McNeice version of Harkonnen better than I did like from the Lynch movie, because it didn't bother me that in the Lynch movie, his face is all messed up, but it was just too overblown for me. But the Ian McNeice version of Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, and I cannot stand that they kept mispronouncing the name in the sci-fi series. They said Harkonnen or something. It's not Harkonnen, it's Harkonnen. It's like a very strong pronounced Russian name. I think that was the idea. But I loved that character. That was one of the characters that really stuck with me, both from the original, and he was such a great villain. And there's a very intricate backstory between the feud between the Atreides and the Harkonnen families that goes all the way back to the time of the Butlerian Jihad and everything, the war against the thinking machines. And you get this image of like, wow, the Harkonnens were actually decent people once upon a time, and they slowly degenerated into what we have in the original book.
Well, that's kind of like the Baron. The Baron used to look like he had an Arnold Schwarzenegger physique.
Yeah, and he very much did.
He was poisoned, and slowly he turned into that putrid bat nastiness that he was in the movie and the series and all that. So yeah, well, slow burn on that one.
He came from really, really good DNA stock. Because the Bene Gesserit, they thought that he had stuff that they wanted to continue in his line, or in the next lines. Their breeding process, they needed him in it.
Well, and here is the thing, and this is talked about in the House books or anything, House Atreides, House Harkonnen, and House Carino. What ends up happening, for those of you who don't remember, Harkonnen actually violates Gaius Helimonhaim, and she releases some sort of toxin into his body and everything during the process. But what ends up happening, if I remember correctly, she ends up getting pregnant from that. And
that's why she went there. That's why she went there in the first place. The Bene Gesserits were manipulating the family bloodlines, and she was sent there to mate with Vlad, and he was so pissed about the whole thing that he ended up violating her.
Yeah.
She introduced the poison, but she ended up pregnant with, yeah, I'll let you finish. Sorry, but yeah.
No, you're fine.
That's
you're
why
good.
she went there, was to mate with him and have a baby.
And do we know, does anybody remember who that baby is?
Jessica.
Yep.
Paul's
because
mother.
she's actually, Paul. She's actually a Harkonnen. She's half Harkonnen, and that actually makes.
She's got that
because all of the Harkonnens have very bright red hair. I think, both Fade and what's the other?
Raban.
No, it is Raban. And I'll say I actually like the Sci-Fi Channel versions of Fade and Raban better than I do in the movie, truth be told. Because, not to throw shade at Sting or anything, but acting is just not his thing. And that's the long and short of it.
Do you remember
why he didn't have a very big part? That's probably why he didn't have a very big part. You don't really see him a lot in the film.
No, but the thing is, doesn't Fade have doesn't he have a pretty prominent role in the movie or in the books? The first one,
in the books he does, but in the film, like, they just kind of used him as, hey, this is a really popular rock star. Let's trot him out and get ratings for our film, kind of a deal. I mean, he really doesn't say much, and he only appears in about 6 scenes. So,
do you remember who played Raban?
Oh, in either version? No, I don't.
If in the movie, if you watch the cast, it's the same guy that played Big Pussy on The Sopranos. If you ever watched The Sopranos, it's the same actor who played Big Pussy on The Sopranos.
Interesting. I wasn't aware of that.
I'm trying to pull up the cast, and it's
Paul L. Smith was his name. I didn't know that, but I'm just looking at IMDb.
Well, Speaker, we've kind of. What are your thoughts? We're talking about the first movie right now. DJ Odyssey, good evening.
I loved it. I mean, the first time I saw it, I was really young, so it took me a while to understand what was going on, but like the more I watched it, the more I loved it. And my brother, he always had the Dune books laying around, so I thought he was big into reading it. And so I was talking with him the other day, and he's just like, "Yeah, I always had them, but I never actually read them." I'm just like, "Well," I was like, "Oh, okay." So, but anyway, but they were big into the film, and I just remember how it pulls you in. That film just envelops you in that world. I mean, it's complete. Every race, every detail, everything was like different and well thought out. And if you go watch the making of that film, the amount of work they put into that was just unbelievable.
Okay. Well, here's a question and everything for y'all, and let's discuss this. And for the chat, put your comments and everything. Of all the different orders within the Dune universe, which one is your favorite? Or which one would you say you identify with the most?
Favorite and identify are two different things for me.
Okay. All right. Let's go favorite first and then identify with second.
Favorite for me would have to be the Bene Gesserit, because you want strong women. They control the whole universe, except for the guild. They are pretty much. They've been manipulating leaders. They've been manipulating bloodlines. They are a hidden force. They're incredible fighters. They have some amount of mental powers to deal with histories that they acquire. Just the amount of discipline that they have next to the Mentats, they're my favorite. Don't like them, but they're my favorite, if that makes sense.
Yes. Stone, what about you?
Oh, that is a really tough one. I'd probably say the Fremen. And the Fremen, it's almost a back and forth, because later the Fremen aren't everything they're set out to be in that movie. So when you start reading about them and you start reading the later books, they're not as noble as you think they are. But still, the fact that they amassed all that technology, they survived in a place where basically everybody said there's nothing out there. The worms control this. There's nothing out there because nothing can live out there. They're survivors, and they didn't just survive; they multiplied and kicked ass. So I got to give it to the Fremen.
Yeah. Speaker, what about you?
I'd probably identify strongly with the Atreides, just because of their high sense of honor and kind of dignity. And it's kind of a militaristic society for the most part, but it's very based in, like honor. That's their main number one thing. I mean, they mention that a lot in the film, is like Duke Leto. He won't treat with the Baron because he doesn't approve of the Baron or the way he is or his tactics, or so I don't know, I just kind of affiliate with that. So that's them and the Empire, or the Emperor. He's devious and stuff like that, but there's a part of him that I can respect for that. I mean, it probably makes me sound like a really horrible person.
No,
but, it's just I can see how his political maneuvering to keep his power. I mean, he's a smart guy, and stuff. So he's trying to hang on to what he has, but yeah, the Atreides are probably still the number ones for me.
I would say my favorite and the one I identify with is probably the Mentats, because you get a very strong image, and I think the portrayal and the image and the idea behind the Mentats is much more better represented in the Lynch movie than in the sci-fi series, for the simple fact that these are, I'm thinking primarily men, because I'm not aware of any female Mentats. I think it's primarily it's a purely masculine organization that makes up the organization. But I love their clarity of thought. I love the fact that they are assassins, not just organizers. Human computers, yeah. And that's the one thing, because it takes an extreme amount of training and discipline to focus your mind to the point where it almost functions like a machine. And we have our next guest coming in, Classic Comics. Good evening.
Hello.
There's the man.
Hey, Classic. Glad to
Really?
see. Glad. Yes, we can hear you.
All
Good
right.
evening.
Thank you for having me.
You are welcome. Glad you could join us this evening. So I don't know.
So y'all were talking about. I'm sorry.
We were talking. We were going around the horn and everything, talking about our favorite organization or what have you within the Dune universe, and the one that we identify with the best. So I can pick back up on my here in a few minutes if you want to chime in with your what you think. Or do you need a minute to mull that over?
Well, I told you who my favorite was, but go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought you were going to take a sec. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. And to everybody in the chat, I'm seeing some new faces. Vile Mike, good to see you. Thank you for joining us this evening. CJ, good to see you, sir. Glad to have you tonight. I was talking about the Mentats because they're my favorite, the one I identify with the most and everything is one and the same for me. I love the
I'm similar to Speaker of the Dead, who I identify with, and it would be the Atreides, and most specifically Duncan.
Oh yeah,
Duncan, Idaho, weapons master. Yep.
I'm from Idaho, so that kind of hits home for me.
Well, you got to say this small, very quick segue. You got to say this for Herbert and Tolkien. They knew how to name their characters.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I loved Patrick Stewart as Gurney Halleck.
Yes.
Man.
It took me. I was thinking about that the other day when I finally figured out. As a kid, and that show came on. I'm like, wait a minute, that's the guy that was Gurney Halleck, and so that kind of endeared me to that show before it even really aired. Before Star Trek: The Next Generation got its feet under it. Was the fact that he was in it. So
I actually remember when Star Trek: The Next Generation premiered, and it was the two-parter, Encounter at Farpoint, and they actually ran Dune beforehand because they had Patrick Stewart in it.
And he's like the only one from House Atreides that makes it besides Paul and Jessica. So,
yeah, because he takes up with smugglers or bandits or something after the assault on Arakim.
Well, isn't he the one who also got the atomics of House Atreides nuclear weapons? He's the one who hid the nuclear weapons?
He was. Yeah, he was. Because him and Stilgar worked very closely together and everything during the third act. Because Stilgar coordinates with the other Fremen. He's like the head of all the Sieges and Amaris speaking. Or he's the head Naib, I think is how it's pronounced. And him and Gurney work very closely together on the assault on the Harkonnens and on all the other houses and on the Emperor's forces as well, the Sardaukar. And because you've got that scene, and I know we're jumping around the movie a little bit here, but you've got that scene at the end of the movie where they're in some sort of bunker near the stone wall that encircles the main palace there on Arrakis. And Paul asks Stilgar, do we have worm sign? Stilgar says to him, Muad'Dib, we have worm sign to which the likes of God has never seen.
Yep.
And you have them blow that wall with the atomics. And then you see all those sandworms start to come through the thing, and you're like, Emperor, you're toast. And Vladimir, so are you.
Well, speaking of the movie, that's where they did change things because the book, from what I understand, there was no storm actually that prevented the Highliners from coming down, but it was Paul blackmailing or forcing the guild not to send them down because he says, you want spice, you keep them away.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
I just brought up the nukes because it was like that's something that they never really. Another thing they never explain. Every house has like a supply of nuclear weapons, but they're forbidden to use them unless it's like the most dire circumstance.
Yeah.
And Gurney hit him when all the stuff happened. The attack happened. Gurney like made away with House Atreides nukes and hit them all so that just in case one day we come back. He could use them, and that's how they got the atomic weapons at the end of Below the Wall.
Yep. Well, and there's one character from the original movie that has always stuck with me, and even though she is, and I'm going to give it away right away, I know this, even though she is played by a child.
Oh, yes.
And that is Alia.
She did a great job.
Mm-hmm.
That young lady brought it.
Yes.
For a young actress, she absolutely brought it. I loved Alia. I'm like, I wish I had a little sister just like you. And to
Murderous.
the chat real quick.
Murderous, yeah.
Just without the gold bar.
Not to mention, she walks right into the Emperor's mobile throne room on his ship, and no one dares lay a hand on her. And she is forcing Mohiam to tell everybody who she really is.
Yeah, that voice when
she's
he's like, why don't you tell them who I really am?
No, Loki, if you're going to quote it correctly. She said, not until you tell them who I really am.
Tell them both. You got to do it correctly, too. Not until you tell them both. See, I've watched the movie a ton of times. We need Classic in here, man. He's got some wisdom to share, don't you?
Yeah, Classic. Come on, speak up, man. Please.
So, but the interesting thing about Ollie, of course, is she kills the Baron. But then in, Children of Dune, where the Baron possesses her because she's pre-born. She was prescient, but while she was still in the womb because of Jessica taking the water of life while she was pregnant.
Yeah.
So she has access to all her ancestral memories, and the Baron is her grandfather. So his spirit is able to effectively kind of possess her in Children of Dune.
It's an evil little girl.
Yeah.
You sure you want that as a little sister?
Nobody would dare mess with me.
Yeah.
Think about it.
I love the voice. I think how they did that, the way they make the women sound just like, oh, make you kind of shrivel up and want to just walk away because it's, I don't know, but I loved how they did that in the film. It just, it just kind of pulls you in. And I had one person say, I hated how they seem to be whispering in their heads all the time. I'm like, that's their inner dialogue. I love that about the movie because you know what they're thinking, not just what they're saying and doing. Because human beings, we're like that. We're not always doing what we're thinking or saying what we're thinking, and it gives you a real deep insight into their characters.
Yeah, and you'll catch like the Reverend Mother, you'll catch Paul, you'll catch Jessica, like sense that and know what those people are thinking. It's like, could she be the one? And, Jessica hears that. Jessica hears that thought. So I always thought that was neat that they could almost like pick up on what other people were thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think one of the great themes of the Dune, all the books from the pre-books, the prehistory books or anything. Well, not so much the ones on the war against the thinking machines, but definitely going into House Atreides, House Harkonnen, and House Carino, and then following through into the main Dune storyline. This is very much a story of political intrigue, and that's something that I think that very much resonates with people even nowadays, because we don't get a whole lot of that. You get just a little bit of political intrigue and maybe the Star Wars prequels, but you don't see that very often as a theme in science fiction or any type of media, except for like political intrigue movies like the Tom Clancy books or whatever, like Hunt for Red October, Present Danger, Patriot Games, stuff like that. But this is one of the few times that I'm aware of, at least, and everything, if y'all can correct me on this, by all means, I'll take the correction, that you have someone that actually blends political intrigue into a sci-fi story.
From the stuff that I've read, and plus my own books, because there's politics in it. I mean, not politics that you could say, oh man, it's just. I think that the people in Hollywood don't know how to play it without getting too political, and they usually screw it up, so they avoid it when they can. Otherwise, they go too far one direction. I mean, honestly, I read this. The guy Ian Douglas, he's really good. I read. There's got one book left in his series of. It's called Star Carrier, and there's a ton of politics in there. I mean, it's all through the dang thing, but it's played out really well. And you have a whole book to work on these things, where a movie, I think some of these people are children that write books into movies, and they can't interpret it correctly to make it fit. Where when they did it for Dune, it was a good shot. It's like my timer. My screensaver goes every 20 minutes.
It's okay, bud.
Oh, I agree with Mike Vile from the chat. The Expanse, it has that. It has that back and forth political,
Oh yeah. Yep.
But I mean, that's what I love about science fiction that's done well. Gives you that balanced approach. You don't just get one side, or you get both sides, and it's not like what we're getting now. A lot of what we're getting now, except for stuff like The Expanse, is it's all just browbeating you with a certain side of the political, spectrum, either way. But I mean, that ruins it. It's just like, because then you don't feel like you're being asked to question your beliefs. You're being told what to believe, and it just puts people off. And they're just like, well, I don't agree with that, and I'm out, at that point.
Very true. Well, and the thing that I like about it is what Herbert did with the books is he blended another aspect, though it was very, very subtle, and it wasn't a whole lot, this whole idea that human society had kind of not so much de-evolved, but they had taken something from our ancient past and incorporated it into something new, and that was this whole idea of a feudal political system, where you've got different houses and different lords, and you've got an emperor or king above it all. And I thought that was actually a very cool touch that Herbert did and everything, because you have the different houses of the lands, right? You obviously have House Atreides, House Harkonnen, House Carino, which is the ruling house. But you get this image that there are numerous houses. You've got House Ixel, I think it is. It's actually a
Ix. Yeah.
Ix. Yeah. Which is more of is more of a technological house within the Dune universe. You get a good idea of who they are in the prequel books to the Dune to the main Dune storyline, because
sunglasses.
Somebody's phone's ringing.
Hello.
It's okay, speaker. It's all good. But yeah, Jeff B brings up a good point. It's very Shogun. It's kind of got that. It doesn't have that overt Oriental feel to it, but it is kind of along those same lines. So, but
well, when I first read Game of Thrones, it reminded me a lot of Dune, with the feuding houses and the political intrigue and whatnot. I saw a lot of similarities between the two.
Yeah, I would agree with that, absolutely. Well, and the really neat thing that Herbert did, and it has really endured over the years, is the fact that he created a mythology that is so multi-layered that no one has really been able to duplicate it in a manner of speaking, at least within the sci-fi genre. And when I say science fiction, I mean like pure science fiction. because you've obviously got the sci-fi element, you've got the political intrigue element, you've got a little bit of a religious element, particularly with the Fremen and the whole prophecy of Paul Atreides, and you've got on this backdrop of it's on a very grand cosmic scale in a manner of speaking. So, any thoughts on that, or any thoughts in particular? Oh, got another one coming in. And we have our sixth. Greetings, PJ. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, gentlemen, can you guys hear me okay?
Maybe just fine.
Clear as a bell, sir.
Yeah, I hear you.
I know you've had a busy day, sir, and I appreciate you coming on tonight. Thank you for being here with us.
I think he's been on every stream that I've watched today.
I wonder why. Oh, sorry.
Pleasure, guys.
Okay.
Dead space.
I'm warning you, I'm a normie on this because I don't remember. I love Dune, but I don't remember it well.
Well, it's okay. I did the same thing to me when I went on yours when you were talking about Picard because I hadn't seen it yet. I was the normie sitting on the outside listening to everyone's opinion.
Well, and Kate, actually, there is a little bit of politics in Lord of the Rings, but there's not that much, really. At least I don't think so.
The thing, when it gets into politics and stuff, I kind of think, and I don't know if I am a horrendously diehard Republic fan, more so than a democracy. A Republic I love. However, if you had really, really good people, really benevolent people who could be your kings, your dukes, your queens, who thought about the people more than themselves, that would be an ideal system. It would work really, really well. But we never get that. There's always a selfish element into it, and the people who seek power are the ones you don't want to have power.
Yeah.
So I can see why there would be a draw for him to write it being more of a feudal system, because in an ideal universe where everyone was thinking of other people, it would be a phenomenal way to run things. You wouldn't have the back and forth slow crawl of things. You would have someone or a group of people who care about you, making sure things work fairly, evenly, and as best as possible. But that never happens.
Well, I think the one thing that we see in the Dunes, in the main Dune movie, and the main Dune book, is you do see a seemingly more benevolent ruler come into power in terms of Paul Atreides, who takes over as the Pasha Emperor. Although he doesn't call himself that, he just calls himself simply the Emperor of the Empire. But the problem is his motivations are not entirely pure. Yeah, he's trying to get revenge for the death of his family, for the destruction of his house. But you get this impression at the beginning of the first movie that he doesn't particularly care all that much for the political machinations that go on between the different houses. He just seems kind of inconvenienced. But that's just my interpretation. What do you all think?
Well, doing some research before I came in, Paul was in training to be able to be a mentat, as well as learning how to be have the skills of a Bene Gesserit. And having that Bene Gesserit aspect to him, he was able to see that their politics were going to lead to a jihad where the Fremen were going to run, and this is why I'm sure Loki had an issue with the Fremen later on. They were going to run shot over the entire universe with mass murders and killings and trying to discipline everybody for the wrong reasons to some degree. But he also had the not just the Bene where he could see that, but also the Mentat part of him who could calculate it out, and he must have been completely torn apart trying to figure out how to avoid being both a ruler and preventing all these millions of people dying. So I think it was quite scary for him, and that really didn't come out in the movie.
Yeah. Well, the other problem is you have got Paul torn between his two schools of training, because you've got Thufra Hawat training him as a Mentat, and then you've got his own mother training him as a Bene Gesserit, in a manner of speaking. But the problem is that's a big, big no-no, because more often than not, men were not trained in the Bene Gesserit way. It was primarily women who were. The first time you actually see that, or the second time you see that, is actually in as the second book, Dune Messiah, or no, it's the Children of Dune, one of the two, where Winsassia, Shaddam's daughter, or one of Shaddam's daughters, actually has her son. For heaven's sakes, what's the son's name? If anybody remembers, let me know. But actually has Jessica, who goes to Seleucus Secundus and everything. She stays there in exile and trains Winsassia's son in the Bene Gesserit way.
Meeks or Meekus or something like that? I think that's the son's name. Can't remember.
No, that doesn't sound right.
And you're not supposed to cross schools either. That's like a big no-no. Big no-no. You can't become a member of the Space Guild and become a Mentat or anything like that. It's a big no-no to cross-train.
Well, but here's the interesting thing, because a lot of Mentats eventually do go, unless I'm mistaken here, do go into the Spacing Guild, unless I'm correct there. Because isn't the fact that they are Mentats that they've gotten their minds so far advanced that they start taking the spice and it starts to modify or advance their mind and their physical appearance and everything to where they become like navigators.
Yeah, the guild, what's the right word for it? Laces the food, they lace the drink, and eventually they'll throw you in a room and just saturate the entire room with spice. And it's like forced mutation, forced evolution.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, because in the it's in the books that deal with the machine, the thinking machine war, the Butlerian Jihad. You actually get the early iterations of the Mentats, of the Spacing Guild, and of the Bene Gesserit.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking about, because there used to be more than just those schools.
There were a number of schools and everything, but the only ones that survived into the main Dune storyline were the Mentats, the Bene Gesserit, and the Spacing Guild. Although the Spacing Guild wasn't a school for education, the only main two that had survived were the Bene Gesserit and the Mentats.
Maybe that's what I was thinking of, was one of the earlier books that dealt with that, because
because
a lot of different schools. I know that at one point they had a bunch of different schools.
Yeah, because
there was.
Go ahead.
Sorry, there were also the Suk doctors.
Yes.
Also.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, because you had Willington Yui, who was the I'm trying to remember what was the name of the organization. I can't remember it. They didn't have the same focus as the Mentats, but they were kind of in the same vein. Kathia, your comment about mythology was messed up on my signal. Can you specify what you mean by that? I super want to know. Mythology of Dune. Kathy, what I'm talking about with the mythology, it's not mythology, it's the prehistory. It's the books that Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson wrote that were a kind of a prelude or a series of prequels that lead up to the main Dune storyline that was, or the main Dune book series that was written by Frank Herbert, Brian Herbert's father. It deals with the Machine War, and it deals with events and anything after the Machine War. And then it also deals with the childhood and the early events and everything that deal with the main houses: House Atreides, House Harkonnen, and House Carino. It's a three book trilogy, and the books are titled as such. You can probably find it on Amazon or maybe even on Audible at this point. But that's what I was talking about by mythology of Dune.
Did they even bring that up in the theatrical version, or was that just in the extended version? The bootleg, I can never say
the Butlerian
Jihad.
Yeah, because it was named after a woman that was one of the very first martyrs of the Jihad. What was her name? Or no,
Sarah Butler.
Yeah, Sarah Butler. Thank you, classics. Appreciate it, because it's been a while since I've read those books. They were actually really good books. I know some people don't particularly care for them, but me, I love worrying about how we got from A to B, and that's why I absolutely devoured those books.
I just didn't remember if it was.
There is an alternate opening
in the extended version. Yeah. They talk about it. I just didn't remember if the princess, the emperor's daughter.
No, she didn't do it, but the extended one where they have, I can't remember the voice actor's
It was actually,
name.
It was, I think it was Dino De Laurentiis who did the voiceover, and they had a series of oil paintings that depicted certain events that led up to the uprising of the machines, and eventually the revolt against the thinking machines by humanity.
I always liked how they had that one robot. It had a tray full of apples, and you see that one human like holding an apple with a bite out of it, almost like, well, we got Eden back, but then we lost it again. So
yeah, something
we're living
like that.
in life luxury. We don't have to do anything. We've got robot servants. We're just, we're just chilling in paradise. And then you see the robots taking them away as slaves.
Yeah. Well, and there were certain, there was a hierarchy even within the machine, what's known as the Machine Empire. Because you had a group of what they called the machine tyrants or something like that. And they were named after great tyrants from history. You had like one that was named Xerxes. You had one that was named, oh Lord,
Agamemnon.
Yeah, that was Agamemnon. There were, I think, like 5 or 6 of them, but they eventually got destroyed during the machine revolt.
From what I understand, the machines actually wouldn't have done the revolt if there wasn't some humans behind it that manipulated the machines to cause them to do that. I mean, maybe I have that wrong, but I thought it was a small group or a couple individuals that decided to do that. And they set the machines on the humans to enslave them.
I'm not entirely sure about that, to be honest with you, Adega. That's something I am honestly not.
That's pretty much how it's laid out in the Machine Crusade trilogy, if any of you've read that.
I have, yeah. But I guess I missed that part.
I think they.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Classic.
You had Agamemnon, who was kind of the ringleader, and he had, I don't know, about a dozen or so cohorts, and they sort of tried to reprogram this master computer, Omnius.
Oh, yeah, Omnius. Yep.
To basically so they could control it, and then therefore control humanity through it, but then it turned the tables on them, basically.
Yeah, because Omnius and everything, it got it did a Skynet on the other machine tyrants and overthrew them, and usually basically just kept them under its thumb. Of course, I remember how that all ended when you had what was it like the obviously I don't think we're spoiling anything here because who knows, but you have it's like the 10th or 20th Gola of Duncan, Idaho that turns out to be the true Kwisatz Haderach and destroys Omnius in the end.
Now you know why I like Duncan. You can't get rid of him.
He just keeps popping up like a good penny. But yeah, oh wow.
I got a question for you guys. You guys that know the Dune universe. Kinds. There's rumors that they're going to do a gender swap on him on the new movie. And I know the new movie is going to be put into 2 different movies, which I think is a brilliant idea. And everything about it so far here is going to be good. But do you think that really affects the story? Because I'm kind of torn on that one.
Oh, it's not just a gender swap. It's going to be a race swap, too, because she will be a strong, passionate African-American woman. Strong woman of color. So, it was, what's her name's dad? It was Chani's dad. So,
right.
If you read the early books, I think he was in the book, the Leto, not Leto, but the Atreides book, the pre-book to Dune.
You're talking about the house books.
Yeah, he goes out and he meets the Fremen and he learns all from the Fremen. So if you have her, I guess her future husband is a Fremen instead of it being a future wife. I don't know. He's got such a small part in that movie. So in the books they explore him a lot, but he's got such a small part in that movie. I don't know. It all depends on how radically they do it. If it's a radical change, yeah, it could completely.
Yeah, it depends on how much they want to, how far they want to take it in making the character different, because it doesn't really have to impact the story. There's nothing really gender specific about what he does. He's really mainly just there as an advisor, and he helps Paul sort of connect with the Fremen, and a woman can do that just as easily, I guess. So it's kind of up to them how they want to handle it, I think.
Didn't he become their leader, though, at one time of the Fremen?
Yeah, because he goes by the...
I think he's the reason why they started storing all that water in the first place.
Well,
it's been a while, but I know he did brought the Sikhs together, or the Sikhs,
Sieges.
Thank you. God.
Those are the city leaders for the Fremen, right?
No, that's the Naibs.
Oh, that's the Naibs.
The Naibs are the leaders of each Siege, and each Siege is its own community, but they all make up the larger Fremen community there on Arrakis. So it's almost like a microcosm of the Great Houses.
Yeah.
Just on one world.
And they're pissed. They're all pissed.
Can you necessarily blame them?
No,
considering what the Harkonnens
Good night, Jeff.
dude. Yeah, good night, Jeff. Thank you for coming, bud. Appreciate it. Yeah, the problem is the Fremen are justifiably ticked at everybody, but in particular the Empire, but more so the Harkonnen. Because the Harkonnen have been in control of Dune, as we understand, in the lead up to the original movie in the first movie in the first book, for I'm trying to think. Classic, if you can help me out here with a time frame, it's been like what, 50 years or more? It's been a while.
You mean as far as how long the Harkonnens were on Arrakis?
Yes.
When the book started?
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly, but I'd say it's been, I think, decades.
Yeah, it's been a long time, and the Harkonnen have not treated the Fremen nicely, obviously. So
you lost PJ.
I think PJ
he was just chilling anyway.
Yeah, PJ is exhausted, and I understand if he bowed out and everything, because this really isn't his thing. He more just came in for moral support, and I do appreciate it. So
thank you, PJ. See you later, buddy.
Yeah, PJ, get you some rest, sauce. Thank you for everything. You've done a good work tonight and today, and we thank you for it. And that's another. You've got I think the one cool thing. Well, there's a number of interesting things that about the underpinning of the whole Fremen society and how they are organized and how they think. They are in some aspects I'll use this term, a pseudo-religious society. Because
they were forced into that by the Bene Gesserits. They went in there and lied about everything. You know, they said, well, this guy's going to be coming to save you and this and that and the other. They planted all those prophecies and beliefs in them because one day they were going to go pluck those fruits. After a couple hundred years of it sat, turned into myth, made people believe all this stuff. And it was a great way of manipulating the whole society. They planned that well ahead.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, big time. And then they just... you had Paul and Jessica drop right into their laps, quite literally. And of course, you've got that great exchange between Stilgar and Jessica, particularly in the first movie, but also in the sci-fi movie. He's like, "Gods, if you can do that to one of us, you're worth your weight in water." And she's like, "I will teach you our way," even though she knows it's kind of a no-no. But she's kind of more or less broken with the Bene Gesserit sisterhood as it is because she bore a son, not a daughter.
Teach us this weirding way.
Yep. And I will say this: I like the interpretation of the weirding way in the sci-fi series better than I do in the movie because I think it's much more accurate. There's a nice film in here. Oh, Orville's still here. Okay, he just kind of dropped out. Hey, Orville, I thought you had left us. Sorry, sir.
Hey, sorry guys. I'm just listening. I'm enjoying you guys catching me up on stuff.
You sound really tired.
PJ, if you need to bow out, man, there is no offense taken, sir. Trust me. You can always listen in the chat if you want to, and then just...
I'm good for a little bit. I'm good. Unless you want to bring somebody else in.
At the moment, I don't have anybody that has... I sent a link to a few people, and they haven't gotten back to me as of yet, so either they forgot or whatever. So,
well, what I'll do is I'll drop out, so because they see that there's room. So I'm just going to listen then, okay?
Okay. Absolutely fine, PJ.
Right, good night, guys.
Bud. Good night, PJ. Get some rest, Thomas. That is a good egg right there. A little scrambled, but a good egg. Like many of us here. As I was getting back to it, Adega made a good point. At least I think it was you, Adega. If it's somebody else, forgive me. What the Bene Gesserit did, wait a minute, no, we've already covered that. I like the fact that they did a more accurate interpretation of the weirding way, where it was more of a physical capability more than a technological one. While that whole concept is cool in the movie itself from the 80s movie, it wasn't true to the books as I understand it, because the weirding way was not a technological contraption. It was a physical and mental discipline.
It was like
it's a martial art.
With martial art.
Yeah, exactly.
The Prana Bindu, they call it.
Yeah, Prana Bindu or Para Bindu, I think is how they pronounced it in the Children of Dune miniseries.
And it was vastly superior than the Sardaukar. The Emperor's, the Emperor's forces could not stand toe to toe. Plus, the Fremen were, if I remember right, they were fearless. They didn't mind throwing themselves into big groups if they died. They didn't care so long as it turned the tide of battle or what have you. Where the Sardaukar were nowhere near as ruthless.
Well, they were ruthless. But here's the thing:
or self-sacrificing, I should say.
More, yeah. I think that'd be a better idea. But the thing you have to realize about the Fremen, they were a force to be reckoned with because of the environment that they lived in. Because Arrakis and Seleucus Secundus are two of the harshest worlds in the Dune universe. But Seleucus Secundus was actually one of the last major battle fields, or was one of the last major locations of one of the last major battles, except for the planet of Carino, in the Machine Revolt, or the War Against the Machines, rather. Dang, that's been a constant thing in sci-fi. And we got Frank Herbert to thank for it. think about this really, because while he doesn't give us a whole lot in the first book, we get this idea that there was a war between humanity and machines, and particularly thinking machines. And you've had James Cameron, you've had the Wachowski, siblings now, that have gone into this, and you've had, I don't know how many other properties that have dealt with a conflict between humanity and machines.
Well, even books, man, if you go back and you look at Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which is what Blade Runner is based on, it's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. You're looking at intelligent machines versus human beings.
Yeah. Good point on there, Stone. Good job.
And that was, I think it was like 69, 70. I'm not sure. I don't know how far. I don't know when Herbert wrote Dune, but I know that book was written, The Android's Dream of Electric Sheep. That was 69 or 70.
Xenocides, I don't think you've ever been in one of my streams. Welcome. Thank you for being here. And he brings up a very good point. The books describe the Emperor's troops as being prisoners trained in hell. That's what Lucius Secundus was, because Lucius Secundus was actually, like I mentioned, it was one of the last major battlefields during the Machine Revolt. And, I keep saying Machine Revolt. They revolt against the machines. Let's put it that way. And it was basically turned because they used so many atomics on that world to destroy the machine armies there, that it was radioactive for maybe centuries until it could actually be inhabited. And then it became the training ground for the Sardaukar. And I think what Shaddam describes them as the Sardaukar terror troops when he's talking to the Guild Highliner at the beginning of the first movie. And you get the impression that these guys are a force you do not want to screw with. But when you put them toe-to-toe against Fremen that have been trained in the Bene Gesserit way and the Parabendu martial art, you've made them 10 times more lethal.
Isn't that why there was a limit on the atomics? The Emperor decreed that each house could only have so many atomics, and they could only use them under like the most dire circumstances. It's not like, oh, we can go in and nuke a planet. No, you can't do that. You have to wait until it's like the most dire circumstances imaginable before you can use your atomic weapon.
That might be the case. Hey, and Rachel, and Xenocide, you seem to know your stuff. If you want to join us, send me a DM on Twitter if you are on Twitter. Or anything, I'm at Rogue5778, and I'll get you in. But
just a quick sec.
Yeah, Dega, go ahead.
Physically, I can only take so much during the day, so I am gonna have to do like PJ. It's getting a little rough for me to stay in one spot. So
okay,
it's been fun. I will catch you guys later.
Dega, you take care, sir.
Thank you again, brother.
Yeah, he's got physical limits. I understand that. So. But getting back on track here, where were we? Let's see.
Talking about Seleucus Secundus and the
thank you, classics. Yeah,
bombing of the planet.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't get a chance to read all the books of the Machine War, or the Machine Trilogy. I think it was, because it was 3 books. It was the Butlerian Jihad. It was about Carino, and there was another book. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head.
The Machine Crusade.
The Machine Crusade. Was that the second book, I think?
I think that was the first one.
Was it the first one?
Maybe. I don't know. It was the first or second. I don't remember for sure.
I think it was the second, because the Butlerian Jihad, I think, was the first one, because it set up all the major players and it got into the beginning of the war and everything, and then it got into the Machine Crusade proper with the war proper and the Machine Crusade, and then of course you had all the finale and the Battle of Carino book.
Okay, yeah, it was the second one. It was the second.
Yeah, yeah, because generally what Brian Herbert and Anderson did is they did them in 3-book breakups, because they actually did House Atreides, Harkonnen, and Carino first, and then they went back and they did the Machine Crusade, and then they did Hunters of Dune, Sandworms of Dune, and there was another book and everything that takes place after Chapter House. There was actually 3 of the books that they did that take place after Chapter House Dune, the final book in the original saga, the 5-book saga. So, but honestly, the great thing about Dune is, well, it's got so many memorable lines. It's got so much depth to it. Even if you aren't super versed in the universe, you can go and pick up a book and everything. At least you can pick up that first book, and while it is dense, it is thick. It's actually, I think it's about as long, if not longer, than Fellowship of the Ring. You can get a good sense of the universe, and then you can work your way all the way through, and you've gotten a fairly cohesive story. So, your thoughts on that, folks, or thoughts in general?
You guys are making me feel like a noob at Dune.
Oh, speaker, I
love the films and stuff like that, but
well, we can
I'm just sitting here just like drinking all this in. Because I was about ready to start reading the books or listening to them on my travels and stuff. So I'm going to do that. But like, you guys are making me want to do that even more. So yeah, I'm blown away.
I am by no means an authority. There are others that are far well versed on Dune than I am, and that's the truth of it. But the thing I will say about Dune, the whole shooting match, the books, the original books that Herbert himself wrote, everything that his son and Kevin J. Anderson have done, has really fleshed out the universe as far as I'm concerned. I know some people may consider that the books that his son have written is to be a kind of a cash grab. Me, I disagree, because I think what Anderson and Brian Herbert have done is they have enriched this world in such a way that this isn't just a saga, it's an epic. This is an epic on, I think, the scale of the Iliad and the Odyssey, honestly. Or maybe even, I know this, it's not a terribly long story, but maybe the L'Amour de l'Arthur, the Arthurian legends. Because this is honestly our first true modern myth. Because all the Dune books came out well before Star Wars, and I think even maybe Star Trek. So, but y'all thoughts on that? What do y'all think?
Well, I think the first novel definitely came out in the mid-'60s, but they kind of came out over a series of years through the 70s and even into the early 80s. So, I mean, Star Trek definitely was around, I think, before most of them were published.
Mm-hmm.
But the incredible thing about what Herbert did with these books is how he was able to draw parallels with the real world. Basically Arrakis is the Middle East. The Fremens are Bedouins.
Mm-hmm.
The various noble houses are basically nations that are trying to, exploit the resource there, which is the spice, which is an analog of oil or petroleum. Their whole society depends on this substance, much in the way that our modern society depends on oil and gasoline.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's actually a very interesting interpretation, Classics. Thank you. Yeah, I can honestly see, I can see all those threads, and very astute. Very well done. Wow. you've dumbfounded me, and that's not often done. That's not easily done at times. Not that I'm saying I'm the sharpest tool in the shed. Just wow,
So
you did a deep dive.
Kathy is asking about the prophecies and the Bene Gesserits
Yeah,
and how they did that.
yeah. Well, and Shea answers it. It was a special arm of the Bene Gesserit, the Missinora Preventus Protectiva, that embedded all of these different prophecies on various worlds, and in particular the prophecy of the chosen one that would come, because you have throughout the original movie that one rogue Reverend Mother, I think it is a wild Reverend Mother, excuse me, that speaks or anything periodically throughout the first movie, and she talks about the one who comes, the voice from the outer world, who will bring the jihad that will lead us out of darkness, and she's talking about Paul Muad'Dib.
I love that lady. When she delivers those lines, gives me chills every time I see it.
I know. And I will say this, while I like the actresses that portrayed Gaius Helen Mohiam, the actress herself in the original movie, I felt bad that she had to be bald, because if I understand this correctly, and I'm going off of Quinn's ideas, he does a lot of Dune lore. And I am going to send him a DM. I don't know if he'll ever see it, but I'm going to send him a DM either tonight or tomorrow. I'm going to say, sir, you are my source. And I actually did a stream, and we may, if this goes too long and we want to break it up and do another stream on Dune next week, I may actually invite him on. So, but he has been a wellspring of knowledge when it comes to the Dune universe, because he put in the work, and he is one of the most avid. There are numerous other channels on here who are very excited for the new Dune that's coming out later this year. I'm one of them. I'm looking forward to this. I need to go back and watch Blade Runner 2049, because the guy who directed it, I heard, did a bang up job.
You're not afraid. You're not afraid that they're going to screw it up like they've screwed up everything. That's my biggest fear. As soon as I see remake coming, I'm like,
Here's the thing. Okay, here's the thing. And I understand your reservation, and I'm not by any means dismissing it. And yes, I get the track record. The track record we have had thus far with Hollywood has been spotty at best. But I think Denis Villeneuve has built enough of a reputation for himself that he has shown that if he is left alone, he can do good work. Because he did Arrival, and I know I've not seen it, and I'm going to, because I've heard it's a tremendous movie.
It's really good. It's really good.
That's what I've heard. And he did Blade Runner 2049. Well, I don't know how well it did in theaters, but I heard it was very well received both by critics and by the audience in general. It was kind of like its predecessor. It didn't grab at you initially, but it picked up steam as time went on. And I think that's true of Blade Runner 2049. But here's the thing with Dune itself, Loki. We, as of yet, have not had a purely faithful adaptation to this story. And we've gotten close on a couple of occasions. But I think what you have here is lightning in a bottle. You've got a good cast, you've got a good director and screenwriter who knows what he is doing. And I think what we're going to get in November, and hopefully going forward, if this movie is well enough received and it's profitable enough, this could be the sci-fi franchise that puts its stamp on the 2020s in a lot of ways. Because I think at this point, people are so tired of, even though this is a remake, this is a remake unlike anything we have seen before, because it's going to be as faithful and as accurate to the source material as it possibly can be, but still have the author's voice, but the director's voice blended together. And I think what we're going to get, as a tagline for the original Dune said, I'm paraphrasing here. I may not be quoting it accurately. A story beyond imagination.
I hope so. I really do. I've heard.
Go ahead, Loki. I've said enough. Go ahead, please.
All I was going to say was I'd heard it's going to be the 2020s Lord of the Rings. It's going to be the 2020 Star Wars. But when I hear stuff like that, that still makes me worried, because if they're hyping it up that much, and I don't want to be a negative Nancy. I don't. I know I rail against stuff, and I get on in the mornings and I talk a lot of crap. But I want something I can be excited about. I want something that I'm like, I can't wait for the next one. Hurry up and get here. Hurry up and make it quick, because I want another one. I want to be that excited. I'm just, anytime they start messing with something I love, I get disappointed lately. That's all.
Well, and Classics, were you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, well, I think Villeneuve is actually just about the only filmmaker in Hollywood right now that I think I would trust to do this. Because I haven't seen everything he's done, but I did see Arrival and I did see the Blade Runner sequel, and they were both very good. And for the most part, what I've heard as far as how the filming is going and everything, I mean, it sounds promising. Obviously, anything that's made in Hollywood right now, you got to be wary of, some sort of agenda at work. And certainly with the source material, Herbert kind of really was kind of ahead of a curve in some ways in creating, strong female characters. The women really, to a large degree, are kind of the movers and the shakers in this story. So you could very easily take it into a direction where the women are basically, they're basically all strong, powerful, and the men are useless. But I think Villeneuve's a better filmmaker than that and a smarter filmmaker than that. And I'm hopeful that it's going to be good.
Yeah. Speaker, your thoughts?
Well, I was just looking at the cast because I hadn't seen who was going to be cast in this next iteration. And wow, there's a lot of really good actors and big names attached to this. I mean, I've heard about the project and that he's really trying to, stay true to the story, which I'm just tickled to death when any filmmaker says something like that. We're going to try and stick to the source material. I know nobody likes the Twilight series, but the second one in that, I wish they'd go get the director from the second movie in the Twilight series, because that was his big thing. He followed that book almost line by line for that movie, and he's the only director in that series that actually did that. And it's the least, that's my least favorite book in that series. And I know I'm probably making myself sound gay by saying I like the Twilight series, but the movies were terrible, but the books were good. So I'm excited about this Dune project, because it's got Jason Momoa in it, playing Duncan, Idaho. And just looking at that a minute ago, I'm like, holy crap. So,
and Speaker, I will tell myself to make you feel a little bit better. I actually went and saw all but the last Twilight movies in theaters, and my wife, the Lady Ambassador, is a huge Twilight fan herself. And I will say this, though I have not read the books, I do enjoy the movies, because it's not the romance that gets me. It's because it kind of echoes another supernatural-esque vampire story or series that I'm a huge fan of, and that's Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So, Speaker, you're not alone there in everything in your appreciation. I know the movies are not the best, but I don't really have the time to sit down and read the books. and it's not really particularly my cup of tea because it's what you call adult fiction or whatever. It does appeal to some people, but personally, it doesn't. But I do like the movies. I thought the movies were good. I thought the cast was good and everything, and what have you. So, but there have actually been a couple of channels that have done a brief overview on the cast for this first movie or these first two movies, and I myself am I'm excited for the. I haven't seen any. I don't think they have leaked anything, or nothing has been released as of yet on the new Dune movie. But I have to say, from what I have heard, and based on the reputation of Denis Villeneuve, I will give him a chance. I'm just waiting for when they drop a teaser trailer or the first full trailer or whatever, because I'm gonna be planted in front of my laptop or my phone or whatever. I'm gonna be planted in front of it harder than probably when the trailer for Force Awakens came out. Because I'm gonna draw an analogy here. Star Wars is pizza, but it's really, really good. It's deep dish pizza from Chicago. Dune is a filet mignon cooked by Gordon Ramsay himself.
Have you seen the kid playing Paul? Have you seen the kid that's going to play Paul?
Yeah, he looks.
I have seen pictures. Like I said, there were two channels. One is Jane's Theory, and who was the other guy? For criminy sakes. Oh, I think it was Darth Lunga that did a cast discussion on the cast for Dune. Thank you, great Joel. Thank you.
Kind of looks like a skeleton with skin stretched over him. I mean, he's like just all skin and bones, and you set him next to Kyle MacLachlan, who played him in the '84, and I'm just like, wow, that's like the only thing that's got me questioning. So I agree with Stone Loki on that. Like,
but here's the thing, and I think Classic can back me up on this. The Paul is depicted or described in the books as being very small for his age, kind of sickly, in a manner of speaking.
Yeah, he's kind of a runt. Yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of wiry, kind of in a manner of speaking. But I think that's due to the fact that he is going through Mentat and Bene Gesserit training. Not to mention his bloodline and everything, because he is part Harkonnen, and the Harkonnens and everything, at least up until. Great troll. That's a good one. But the thing you have to remember is Paul is part Harkonnen, and based on his genetics and based on all the training that he is going through, he is going to look a little skinny. He is going to look a little gaunt, in a manner of speaking. But he is kind of the runt of the family. And I think, isn't he? Yeah, is Paul's no. Strike that, because Alia, sister, right? Durr. But I honestly am not worried about the look of the character. I am more interested in how well the character is portrayed. Because what Villeneuve is doing is he is trying to cast these characters in a way that is true to how they are described in the books, but also get the best actors that he can for the role. And he has cast a young actor as Paul, because Paul in the first book is young, but he ages throughout the first book because of the first book take place over the span of 10 or 15 years. Something like that, because it's a long, long war between the Fremen and the Harkonnen. This is no short war. Hello?
Well, I don't remember how exactly long it is. I do think it's a couple of years. I don't think it's. I'm not sure how long it is, but
Mm-hmm.
as you said, Paul he's supposed to start out as a small person, and
Mm-hmm.
again, I've never Timothy Chalamet. I think that's the name of the actor.
Timothy
I really
Chalamet.
haven't seen him in anything, so I really can't speak to how good he is. But like I say, it's the movies I've seen of Villeneuve. He's cast them really well.
Yeah,
and I don't think he would put this kid in it if the kid couldn't handle it.
Yeah, because Paul himself is a very complex character, and you need somebody that's going to be able to bring that depth and that complexity and that maturity, but at the same time, that childlike innocence, in a manner of speaking, to the part. Not that he's mentally childlike, but that he is. How would you preface that?
He brings the vulnerability of a child to the part.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he does, because Paul in the first book, and in particular the movies, he's a bit of a whiner, in a manner of speaking, because I think it's in the TV, it's in the sci-fi miniseries with William Hurt. You have that one exchange between him and Thufir Hawat. And he sounds a little bit like he's a kid that's not getting his way. He doesn't like the fact that they're having to pack up, and go to Arrakis and leave Caladan. But at the same time, he's kind of excited. He's kind of interested in what's about to happen to him and his family. So, well, and let's do a discussion on this. Of the two versions, and we'll stick to the first movie specifically, of the Lynch movie and the sci-fi miniseries, whose roles do you think were more accurately portrayed of the main cast? Paul and Jessica, the Baron, the Fade and Raban, the Emperor, Chani, Stilgar, Gurney Halleck, and everything. Who do y'all think did a better job on those roles?
I think it depends on how you define more accurate. I mean, I much prefer the Lynch movie myself, because I think it was just so wonderfully cast. The sci-fi version, I'm not a big fan of. I don't think the casting is all that great, particularly what his name? I forget the guy that plays Paul in that.
Alec Newman.
But Alec Newman, okay. And but even though cast generally, they're not that great in my opinion. And obviously, I think although there's a difference in time between the two films, I think the production values are much better in the original movie. And and I remember distinctly, because I had a feeling this thing was not going to be great, because I remember when they were advertising it on the Sci-Fi Channel, they would keep emphasizing that the costume designer was some Oscar-winning costume designer. I think when that's one of your main selling points, you're probably in trouble.
Yeah. Speaker, what about you?
I'm all for the '83 movie, the David Lynch. The casting for that was just, I don't know how and I guess that colored the way I viewed the miniseries that they did. I couldn't get, I'm like, none of them seemed to fit the same way that original cast did. Trying to think of somebody that I could, the Sodrikar really bothered me in the miniseries. I'm just like, they looked like, I don't even know why they just weren't like intimidating or scary. Like in the Lynch film, they're people, they look like guys you would not want to meet anywhere, anytime. And the ones in the, it's just, so I mean, I'm very, very jaded in that regard. The 84 is just or 83, pardon me, is just the epitome of great casting. I mean, just and every character just seems to hit the mark, and like I say, I haven't followed the books, but just for the sheer way they portrayed their characters. I mean, I don't know. They're just, I don't know. Like it's one of my all-time. It's like I was telling you a week or so ago. It's like one of my all-time favorite science fiction films. I can watch it over and over, and I never get tired of it. The scene where Paul's standing speaking to the Fremen from the platform. Just, I mean, the way they did that, it just sucks you in, and you're just like, this is like the best thing ever. So, and like you're saying, the production values, the visuals, you can just tell that was a labor of love. Everybody in that movie wanted it to succeed, and although it didn't get the acclaim or the financial success, I mean, it's a cult classic. More people know about that film, or most sci-fi buffs know about that film and love it. So,
oh yeah. Stone, what about you?
Oh, dude, I agree. I completely agree. It's the movie. I watched the TV ones. The ones I think they were on Sci-Fi.
Yeah.
When they came out, I don't think I ever watched them, but I remember like seeing the solder car, and they were like space green berets, and I was just like, okay, what the hell is this? These are the solder car terror troops. These are just like guys with berets.
They look like gay knights.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's rude, but
No,
that's what I thought
okay,
the whole
sweet.
time I saw him. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it was just, I was just, okay, the story is one thing, but no, you can't beat the cast, and they made movies different back then. They had to work their asses off to make those movies and to do those effects. It wasn't just, oh, well, we'll have a computer throw it in there, so just act like it's there. No, they couldn't do that back then. They had to do the job, and they had to do the legwork on that job. And you could tell they loved what they were doing. And I know some people don't like the changes from the book to the movie. I'd love, when I was a kid, I'd love those sound guns. I was like, that's sound. They're doing that with sound. That's the coolest thing ever. But yeah, the TVs had horrible costumes.
And so I saw your DM and everything with the picture of Chalamet.
Yeah, dude. Talk about soy. He's in like a silk see-through blouse, and I'm like, okay, I don't know. And they've got the girl that plays Mary Jane from the Spider-Man movies. That's gonna be Chani.
Honestly, I don't have a problem with her. I think she's actually a pretty good actress.
I like Josh Brolin coming in. I like Josh Brolin, whatever they're going to use him for.
Josh Brolin,
Gurney Halleck. He's going to be Gurney Halleck.
Yeah, yep.
Is he going to be Gurney? Is he going to be Gurney Halleck?
And what's his name's going to be Duncan Idaho.
Jason Momoa.
Aquaman.
Yeah, Jason Momoa, because Dave Bautista is actually playing Raban.
Yeah,
he's playing the Beast Raban, and from what I have heard, he's gonna look the part.
Oh, I imagine
he always does.
I see that.
Yeah, but from what I understand, Raban, the reason why they call him the Beast, he's truly beastly looking. I'm gonna say this, and this is not. What am I doing? The guy in the Lynch movie was just plain fat. That was not a beast. That was just a guy in a black leather suit who was fat.
Yeah.
Now the guy that they got to play Raban in the sci-fi movie, I got a better impression that this was a little bit closer to who Raban was supposed to be, and very much so also in the case of the guy who played Feyd-Rautha. These were two sides of a coin. One was very beastly and maniacal and brutal. The other one could slip in behind you as quiet as the wind and slit your throat, and you wouldn't even know it happened until you dropped to the floor.
Well, in the books, Fade's actually, he's a pretty powerful warrior himself. There's a scene in it where he's fighting basically in kind of a gladiatorial match.
Yeah.
And kills a guy.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the one character in the Lynch movie that I thought wasn't cast that well.
No.
Sting wasn't really the best choice for that role.
No, he wasn't. Well, but if in classic, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the whole idea why they cast Sting as Fade is they wanted to go for someone that was very wiry yet very muscular, because that's how he is portrayed or how he's described in the books by Herbert. And they wanted to get that aesthetic for the character at least.
I always figured it was the red hair and the the fact that he was so well known. You know, get a big name in there, and
Oh yeah, yeah,
that might be the case too, Speaker. That might be the case too.
yeah. I'm sure he was put in there to appeal to the MTV kids, and that's why they got Toto to do the soundtrack.
Yeah,
which I love the music. I was just about to talk about that. It's so good.
Yeah, the music for the movie was outstanding. I mean, it's very iconic. I would say it's almost as iconic as anything that John Williams did for Star Wars or anything along those lines. But yeah, the music. And let's spend a few minutes. Let's talk about the aesthetic of the original movie, because honestly, there's a lot there we can dissect. I think, at least, in comparison to the TV movies. And I'll say this, yeah, the production value on the TV movies wasn't that good, but the story was, for me, the thing that gripped me was the story, because I think it was a little more accurate to the original book as I understood it. But the thing I loved is you had a very distinct style for the three main houses, for Carino, for Atreides, and Harkonnen. And I love the very Napoleonic, militaresque costuming for the House Carino, Shaddam's house. Everything, because it harkens back to Old Earth, as they call it in the books. It harkens back to like not so much the Victorian era, but the Napoleonic era of Earth. And that was one thing that I absolutely loved. Not to mention the guy who played Shaddam IV. I loved him. He was one of my favorite. He was one of my favorite parts. I wish he had a bigger part in the movie, honestly, because I would.
Miguel Ferrer.
Yeah, Miguel Ferrer. Yeah, that guy. He may have been an older fella, but he owned that role. Now, the guy who played Shaddam in the TV miniseries, he did a good job too, I think, at least. But Miguel Ferrer, he owned that role, and he cut such a swath in any scene that he was in. I particularly like the part towards the end of the movie where he's sitting on his throne and he's very nonchalant. He's like, bringing that floating fat man, the Baron. And it's right after he has had Raban beheaded. And you see Raban's head sitting on the platform in front of Shaddam's throne, and Shaddam is surrounded by his advisors or his cabinet or whatever it is. And you're like, this is a man you don't want to screw with. and you see him give Vladimir Harkonnen a tongue lashing like the which you have never seen, and he's saying they're like, I had no idea, I didn't know what was going on, I put Raban in charge, please don't blame me, it's not my fault, it's his fault. But oh wait a minute, he's dead. And I just utter disdain and utter disgust for Vladimir, the guy that he put in charge. I'm sorry, we were going to talk about the set design and costuming. I got off on a whole tangent. Sorry about that, guys.
I don't know, man. It's great. The Emperor, this is all his fault. He was worried that the Atreides were going to take over and set him up. And it's all of this is all his fault because he got worried that he was going to lose his power. So it's all on him.
Mm-hmm. Who was it that said all people who have power are afraid to lose it?
I don't know. Who did say that?
Oh, come on, classic. The Grand Emperor himself, Darth Sidious.
Oh, did he? Oh, okay.
Yeah, Emperor Palpatine said in Revenge of the Sith to Anakin when they're in the
I don't
opera
remember.
house. Yeah, they're in the opera house and everything when he's talking about Plagueis. So,
Wow,
but
I didn't even remember that.
Yeah, neither did I.
Now I got to go watch that again. Great.
Well, and I will tell myself a little bit here. I had a nickname at one of the jobs I had when I was in my 20s. They referred to me as Thoofer.
You were an assassin?
I was a mentat. And I think I think I'm starting to get that back. I have a memory that's almost like a steel trap. If I watch anything more than once or twice, it's locked in here. If I watch it, if I read it, if I listen to it, it's in here. And that's why I can. Okay.
Oh,
Dega, are you talking about James McAvoy or me? Because I just went and got a haircut yesterday, young man. Oh, okay. Xenocide, thank you. And you know what? Xenocide, I am actually. Oh, wait a minute. I don't want to do that. I'm going to put you up here, but I'm going to go over to my other tab. Where are you? Yeah, the worms, I think, were actually much, much better in the movies compared to the TV shows, even though they looked like a giant tube worm with a split on the end.
Is anybody else in here thinking of the ambassador on his way to work, and he reaches into his pocket and pulls out a little thing, and he's like, "It is by will alone I set my mind in motion. It is by the juice of statutory that the acquire speed. The lips acquire stands. This day become a warning. It is by will alone I set my mind in motion." Oh Lord.
No, I'm not like Mentat Piter to the breeze. Far from it.
Which, I mean, Brad Dourif just was so awesome in that. I love Brad Dourif anyway. He's awesome in anything he's in, but
he's even awesome in that dreadful alien movie, Alien Resurrection, where he plays one of the scientists.
Yeah, he's good in everything.
Yeah, he is. He was actually in an episode of Babylon 5. I think it was season 3.
Passing through Gethsemane.
He was in Voyager too. He was
classic. Thank you. Yeah, Passing Through Gethsemane, where he plays a monk who gets who finds out that he was actually a murderer and he had his mind wiped. I'm like, pirate. Yeah, Shea. Yeah.
And he played a Starfleet crewman on Voyager.
Did he?
Who was
he was a murderer.
Yeah.
Yeah. He always plays a murderer, a psycho, or someone freaking crazy.
Yeah. He's always played a psycho, except in Deadwood, where he played the doctor. Yes. But everything else, I've seen him in. He's playing some kind of a nutcase.
I loved him as the doctor in Deadwood.
And he plays Wormtongue in Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Yes. That originally was going to be Jeffrey Combs, but Yeah, he was, I think, originally the guy they were looking at for that.
For
who also would have been very good.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the crazy thing. You get a much better idea who Thufir was in the house books, the three houses books. And Thufir was a badass. This was not a man you screwed with. He was a master of assassins because he was one of the very best mentats that had ever come through their academy.
Wasn't that why the Baron kept him alive?
Yeah, because Thufir had such a keen and sharp mind, and your heart breaks for Thufir because he would have rather died than work for the Harkonnens. And there's actually I think it's in the extended cut. You can find it on YouTube. There's an exchange at the very end before the fight between Paul and Fade, where he says, if there are any Atreides that are still alive, let them stand forward, or something to that effect. And they actually let Thufir through, and they let him and Paul embrace for a moment. And Paul is like, well, he doesn't say I forgive you, but he's like, I understand. You did not have a choice. This was done to you, and I release you. And he pulls out the heart plug out of Thufir, and Thufir dies. But he tells the fated Keen, let him be carried from this place and let him be buried as an Atreides, and let him be honored as such. And I thought that was just such a great moment, because there was a real kinship. There was a very, and Mara speaking of very father and son relationship, I think, at least. Well, there was a master and apprentice relationship between Paul and Thufir. In a lot of ways, Thufir was a father figure to Paul, just like Gurney and Dr. Yui.
Yeah, he has a very positive relationship with all of his teachers.
Yes, he does, because he's so astute, he's so smart, he's so sharp. And I think that was just a very nice touch. That was a very nice moment and everything that they put back in, I think, into the extended cut between Paul and Thufir. And I loved Freddie Jones and that role. Him and that role, and in particular the other role and everything that he's well known for as from Krull, as the Ancient One. And everything comes out of the hills and sets Corwin on his quest.
Another.
That's
film.
right. He was in that, wasn't he?
Amazing
I forgot
film.
that.
Yeah,
I always think of him in The Elephant Man. He played I forget the name of the character, but he played the guy that ran the circus, and he was the one who was exploiting John Merrick and abusing him.
I tell you, got it. If you want my life, you can take it. But Thufir doesn't. He kills himself in the movie, poisoned by the Harkonnens in the book. Adega, thank you.
I always remember him from Firefox as the British guy that works with Clint Eastwood in that film. So I don't know. He's another one of those characters that whenever you see him in a film, he's instantly believable in whatever role he's in. He just brings that to every role that he's, and it's like Brad Dourif. Brad Dourif's the same way. They're always secondary characters, but without them, the movie would suffer.
Yeah. Well, and the wonderful thing about Dune is you have so many wonderful side characters, everything, particularly in the first book. And you have carryovers through the various other books, at least up until a point. But then you have new side characters that come in and fill up, because there are time jumps especially between Children of Dune and God Emperor. Well, no, let's see. It's Dune, Children of Dune, Dune Messiah, God Emperor. Or I might, unless I'm mixing them up, I don't think I am. No, Children of Dune, then Dune Messiah, God Emperor, Heretics, and then Chapter House. But there's a big time jump between Dune Messiah, and especially there's a big time jump between God Emperor and Heretics. And you have new characters come in and fill in those spots, but you always have that thread of the Atreides family throughout, or the legacy of the Atreides family with the decisions that Paul and Leto II have to make. Yeah, Adega, thank you. He said it's a deleted scene. Yeah, that sounds about right. But the main Shea, cool. Very, very cool.
Yeah, that's what I was watching earlier today was the Steelbook that has the double-sided DVD. That's the only way I know you can get that. I bought the Blu-ray, but the Blu-ray doesn't even have the extended edition on it.
Really?
I had to pay a lot of money to find one of those steel books.
Yep.
I can imagine. Wow. But the side characters honestly bring just as much to the story as the main ones do. I think it was either you, Speaker, or you, Classics, that brought up that point. And you've got such an interesting and diverse side cast in that first book, because you've got Liette, Dr. Kynes, you've got Stilgar, you have got the Harkonnens, you've got oh lordy, you've got Shawnee, obviously. Now here's the question: would y'all consider Shawnee main character or a side character?
I still think she's something of a secondary character because she doesn't really come in till about halfway through. But maybe that's just my perception.
What about you, Loki?
Well, he doesn't. If I remember correctly, he doesn't marry her. He marries the Emperor's daughter, so he can become Emperor.
Yeah. He. Well, here's the thing. He marries her, but they never have children.
Yeah, but he has
Shawnee.
children with Shawnee.
He has children with Shawnee, second, and Ganima. So.
I'd agree with Speaker. She is kind of like a halfway through the story kind of person.
Yeah, but she does have. She is a secondary character, but she has I think she has somewhat of a prominent role.
Yeah, major role, secondary character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because she is the pseudo love interest or anything for Paul, even though it's not obviously purely a love story. It's not anything, but I think she kind of keeps him anchored in the world and keeps him focused, because Paul goes through a lot of changes, an awful lot of changes, anything throughout that first book, especially because I'll say it. This book, the Dune book, even has elements of Hamlet in it, at least in the aspect of a son getting revenge on the murder of his father. And if you want, you could draw the parallel that unbeknownst to him, his grandfather, his maternal grandfather, has murdered his father, because Vladimir is Paul's grandfather.
Yep.
The only problem is they don't get the relationship between. Well, no, because I'm thinking it's in the TV movie that Paul refers to Fade when he kills him as cousin, and I don't think that's accurate. They wouldn't be cousins, would they?
He's Vladimir's nephew, so
yeah, I guess that would be I think that would be accurate. Yeah, that would be accurate because no.
Great.
He'd be his uncle.
Uncle.
No, because you're right. He is Paul's uncle. My bad, because he's Jessica's father, unbeknownst to her. At least up until a point, she doesn't realize that, because I think it's Paul that tells Jessica that Vladimir is her father, and that Mohiam is her mother. But she doesn't know this until way after the fact, and they don't even discuss it in the movie. They discuss it in the TV series of the first book.
Do they ever talk about? Okay, the Shadowed Mapes, the housekeeper, refers to her as almost like princess. I can't remember the exact words she used, and she corrects her and says, "I'm not. I'm just a concubine," but she is. So did the Fremen know already? Because they have the mother. They have that mother,
the Reverend
Mother of the Bene Gesserit, and she's the one that's telling the Fremen everything about what's about to happen. So did they tell the Shadowed Mapes she is that, knowing that she's the daughter of Vladimir Harkonnen, or was that just
the only reason Paul discovers Jessica's and his own bloodline, their own heritage, is when he takes the water of life and he starts to go back into his genetic memory and discovers the fact that he is part Harkonnen, and the fact that Jessica is Vladimir's daughter.
Right.
Because we talked about this toward the beginning of the stream and everything, the fact that Harkonnen had gone to Mohiam had gone to the Harkonnens' home planet Gidi Prime with the intention of getting impregnated, and what ends up happening is Vladimir violates her, and she does obviously get impregnated with Jessica, and does bring her to term and deliver her, obviously. And that's because that is the reason for Vladimir Baron Harkonnen's physical state, is because she releases some sort of poison or toxin into his bloodstream, and it causes him to turn into that blobby mess as he uses those repulsor lifts and everything to move around. So, no.
Boy, that's not worth it.
No. No, that's the ultimate revenge right there.
Worst one night stand ever.
And how. But no, the only
always wear protection.
Obviously, they don't have it in the Dune universe. But no,
I was just curious if perhaps the Reverend Mother knew, and that's why the Shadow Matron referred to her as like a royal, and then she corrects her and says, "No, I'm not. I'm just a concubine," because she doesn't know at the time that she's the daughter of Vladimir Harkonnen.
No, she doesn't know until Paul reveals it to her later on, and after it's not in the Lynch movie. It's in the sci-fi TV movie or the miniseries. Everything that relationship is revealed. It's not even revealed at all in the movie and everything, the Lynch movie, that anybody's related to anyone else. This is just a pure revenge story and everything. And eventually it gets... I don't think it goes beyond Paul and Jessica, and maybe Alia might have known eventually when she got old enough to know it, or maybe she knew it because she was preborn. And I think she might have been aware of it. And I think the fact that she is related to Harkonnen, because
she did.
Yeah, because she that's not revealed, I think, until Children of Dune, that she because she as far as I know in the first book she never discloses it. It isn't until later in. Okay. Whatever, Adega. Blue waffles of the face, whatever that means.
Waffle.
No, we're not going there. This is not going to turn into one of Jeremy Griggs's streams. No, I will not allow it. We're going to stay on topic here. There's not going to be no daddy waffle happening here. I'm not nobody's daddy. I don't want waffles, and just no. Okay. I'll boot you. I'll do it. I will boot you.
Oh man.
Oh my goodness.
Did anybody else love the navigators from the film?
Yeah.
And the way they looked. I mean, they're intimidating and creepy and not at all human anymore. And then from the sci-fi version, I was just like, okay. I mean, it was a little cool, but I was like, you guys, it just didn't look like they put near the time into it that they did with the Lynch film.
Well, they had to put in the time and everything for the Lynch film, for the simple fact that they went back, I think, through some sort of designs, and Mr. Brushface, good evening. Thank you for joining us. No. Anyway, the thing about the Navigators, I honestly like the design of the Navigators from the movie. They were okay. The ones in the first movie were okay. They didn't have a big role or anything. And you don't even honestly, that scene at the beginning of the first of the Lynch movie and everything is so iconic. That exchange between the Navigator and the other guild representatives and Shaddam is honestly, it's a beautiful. It was very well blocked. It was very well shot, and the acting was just on point.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly love the design of the Navigator from that.
Mm-hmm.
So, the ones in the TV movies, they just seemed a little too generic. Adega, I thought you were going to go to bed as it was. Get your butt to bed, sir. Move it.
He's probably just laying on his couch somewhere with his phone.
Don't make me.
That's what I end up doing. So
the voice. Yeah, don't make me use the voice. I'll do it. I'll pull out the voice. And how can it be? Because I am the Kwisatz Haderach. Wow. 20-some odd years I haven't seen that movie, and that one line still sticks with me. Okay, I dig it, whatever. No worries. But, oh, for heaven's sakes. Oh, Lordy. Lord Almighty. And I will say this, the other representatives of the guild, man, were those guys grotesque. Phew.
Yeah.
They have been dipping into the spice a little too much because they were just getting okay. Whatever. Thanks for the shill. Okay, whatever.
Yeah, the tubes running from their nose into their brain. I mean, it's just like
and the fact that they couldn't even speak normally, they had to use that big black microphone that somebody had to hold in front of them so they could speak normally.
Yeah, you mentioned the aesthetic of the film earlier, and
we kind of
that was one thing I really loved about it, because up to that point, sci-fi was basically mostly it was Star Wars and Star Trek, which are two different things, but they have a lot of similarities. They're both kind of these settings that they're very bright. You've got all these big shiny ships, and Dune was such a departure from that. It was so much darker and grimier and brutal, and the kind of you have all these different groups of people who they're distorted and warped in different ways. The Guild Navigator being kind of the most extreme example of that. Now the Guild Navigators in the miniseries, I think they actually look more like they're described in the books. Yeah. But that one in the film is just so freaky. It
sticks with you. I mean, you're just like, wow.
Well, and I can.
By the way, if you go back and watch that opening scene, watch closely the Navigators, because one of them trips and falls down.
Yep. You're kidding. So which is worse, the stormtrooper that bumps his head on the door, or the Guild Navigator that trips and falls?
I'm amazed they could see anything with the costumes some of those poor guys were in, because they had their heads completely wrapped in the black, stuff. But yeah, just watching how they zoom in on his lips, and he's basically expelling spice the whole time, and the way his lips are moving, I'm just like, it's almost indecent. But it's just, I mean, you just kind of sit there mesmerized by what they're doing. And that's, I don't know. It's fantastic. But like, and like you were saying, with even the way they traveled through space was so different. with the folding of space. There was no warp drive, light speed, hyperdrive. There was just traveling without moving. It's just such a cool concept that I hadn't really been done before.
No. Well, and it's kind of they kind of build upon the whole advancement of technology in the books and everything, particularly with the Machine War trilogy books and everything, the Holtzman drive or the Holtzman effect or whatever, and everything that's built and what have you. And honestly, I liked the design of the Guild Highliners, and I liked the transport ships there and what have you. But I will say this: I like the design of the Highliners better than the TV miniseries, because I think that's a little more accurate and a little more true to the idea of what the Highliners actually looked like and how they functioned and how the different ships were stored or whatever or housed as they traveled through space. Because you got the idea that these were ships that were from all over the Dune universe or that universe that were going to various points, and they had a ways to go. And you had I think it was like one navigator per Highliner that plotted the course and what have you, and they got where they needed to be. So. Anyway. Well, guys, I honestly think this is going to be worthy of a second stream. What do you all think? Because we have not even touched on any of the books really, and we haven't even touched on the Children of Dune miniseries. I think that both those topics deserve a stream of their own. What do you all think?
Yeah.
Sure.
Speaker?
Yeah, totally.
And I'm
going to have to do more research. I'm feeling like I'm behind in this discussion. So this next week, I've got some work to do.
I think this subject deserves a second stream. So to everybody in this chat, there will be a part 2.
I don't know anything about the jihad. Almost absolutely nothing about what happens with the machine. So if anybody knows about that, I'd love to hear more about that. I haven't read those books. I just read the Atreides and the House books, and I think the original book and the Children of Dune, and that's it. So everything that happened after Children of Dune and everything that happened during the Balerian jihad, I got no clue.
Well, not to mention there are so many other characters that from the first movie that we have not even touched on. But like I said, we're coming on 2 hours, and I don't want to keep this super late because I've got stuff tomorrow and everything to get to do and everything. I've got church, obviously. But I think we're going to hold off. We're going to do a part 2, and we're going to jump into Children of Dune. We're going to jump into the books. And I'm going to reach out to somebody, and this is not me trying to do any build up and not deliver, but I'm gonna reach out to somebody on Twitter and see if I can't maybe get them in here, because they are an authority amongst authorities on Dune. So, but gentlemen, if you want to do closing thoughts and then plug your channels or whatever, and then we will close this out. And if y'all want to hang around for a few minutes, and we'll do a little after show, just the 4 of us, and then we'll wrap her up.
I think you're up, Stone Loki.
Oh, I'm first. Holy shit. Okay. I do Mornings of Mischief with Pop Culture Therapy, 8 a.m. every Monday through Friday. If you want to come by, hang out, I would love to have you on there. We got an awesome chat. I interact with the chat. I love talking to the chat. Chat makes the show. Really, I'm just kind of like the guy that laughs at everything and pokes holes in TV shows and movies. I would love to have you guys on there. If any of you want to drop by. Everybody's always welcome. I don't talk shit about anybody's opinion. I love to hear other people's opinion, especially when it does not align with mine. So come on by anytime. Anybody. Doesn't matter. You could hate everything I say. Please let me know. I'd love to hear it.
Speaker?
I'm speaker for the dead. I got my own channel. Started about a year ago. Just wanted to get to know other people and get more involved with people that love the same things I do. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to be one of the positive voices of what we can look forward to, how to save our modern myths, how to save our entertainment. And, even if you don't like something, build up the positives and look for something that's going to, take us into the future and be that voice for change in a good way. And I mean, it's okay to be negative about stuff you don't like. Just don't let that be everything that you talk about. And that's me in a nutshell. I love getting to know other guys and gals out there and to hear other people's opinions. I'm like Stone Loki. I just like to be part of the discussion because it's so much fun. I mean, these are things that they're part of us. They're part of our childhoods. They're part of everything that makes us who we are. So yeah, just come check out my channel. If you like it, subscribe and go subscribe to these other guys. These guys are fantastic. So that's all I've got.
Okay, well, my channel is called Classic Comics, and I've been going about 3 months now. It's a pretty new channel, and I do reviews of current comics, also older ones. Also do reviews of various pop culture properties, TV, movies. Just put my review of the first episode of Picard up a few days ago, and probably going to get the second episode review up here in the next day or two. And please come by. I need all the subscribers I can get.
And as always, folks, I am your host, the Ambassador. This is my stream, but it is our stream. This is where we come to share our passions for pop culture and everything else in between. Those of you who follow me, you know what I cover. And for those of you who are new to the channel, to Mr. Brushface, to everybody that's in the chat that I may not know, I thank you for being here tonight. I thank you for coming by. I want to send a shout out to Orville Nation, PJ over there, for all of his support with this, with everything that he has done for me, and for all these other channels, to Stone Loki, to Speaker for the Dead, for Adega Outlaw, especially for those of you who do not know, Adega is and I am going to be a bit hyperbolic here, but I think it is justified, a very talented author and a very good YouTuber. And to Classic, you've got my subscription, you got my support, man. As the guy,
thank you.
As they say on Fandom Collective, we rise together. But I cover pop culture of the 80s and 90s. I cover a little bit of Christian theology and all that other stuff. And Great Troll, yes. Just subscribe to all the channels.
I just hit up Classic Comics. So you got me as a subscriber, brother. I'll check you out.
Thank you.
No problem.
I'm subscribed to you, by the way.
Oh,
yeah, I was actually, and I will say this for Stone, his Mornings of Mischief are a lot of fun. I usually am at work, and I listen to him. If I have a minute, I'll pop into the chat and say howdy or whatever. But his Mornings of Mischief are a whole lot of fun. Speaker's channel has got good stuff on it. Classic, I have not had a chance to check you out, but I will make an effort to do so. So, ladies and gentlemen, spread the word. Next week, Dune stream part 2. So, and I will post a time and date for that. We may switch it up a little, just depends, or we may keep it where it's at. But I will let y'all know on Twitter, and I think everyone here has a Twitter account. You can reach me at Rogue5778. I know, very odd and everything, but I like it. It has sing. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Ambassador and his monthly crew of Minions, signing off.